Today we have a special, for me very special anyway, speaker. Before we go on to the speaker, I'd just like to do our normal things of advertising and some of the things that we're going to be doing over the coming months. Hopefully everybody here knows about our air show, Warburton Beach, 22nd and 23rd of May. So please get the word out. We're doing a lot of advertising, and Sky 4 is also doing a movie on the day or a DVD on the day, and there'll be a lot of pre-advertising. But please try and get the word out for us, and let's hope this year we'll be blessed with some good weather. The other good news is, some of you may know this also, is that we're having two air shows this year. On the 25th and 26th of September, we'll be having biplanes and zeppelins. This is going to be, we're trying to put it together at the moment. It'll happen. It will be First World War planes. We'll have a bunch of our own and a few more that are coming in over the coming months. And also there's a lot of guest planes that want to either fly or will container their planes in here. So it'll be fun, something a little different. There are a few things that we're trying to test out. We set the date and the wheels are in motion, and September date is going to happen. Another one to listen out for. Who gets an e-blast that we send out? We send out on the computers. Okay. A few, not many, 20. Those that have got computers, or friends, or daughters, or grandchildren, or whatever, we send out an e-blast, which gives you an update on all of the events, upcoming events. We do this, we try to do it once a month. And things, as you know, around here change quite quickly. We plan for things, some work, some don't work. But the e-blast is one way of keeping up to date with what is happening in the museum. So if you're not on the list and you're not receiving, outside the store, there's a sheet of paper. Please put your email address on there. And then once you get it, and you don't like what you're getting, fine, you can delete it. But at least you get the choice of getting the information, and we'll try not to bug you with too much information, and you'll be getting it probably once a month, sometimes twice a month. Another thing we're working on, something a little different, we tried a couple of movie nights last year. They went okay, we just had a small number. But we spoke to a few folks about it, and we're trying to set up a drive-in movie. Yeah, and this drive-in movie, and all the volunteers, by the way, the people who are going to serve you the hot dogs and the hamburgers, they don't know that yet, but that's the way it's going to go anyway. But so we will be working on a drive-in movie, which will be on the field opposite the front door, and probably a screen against the trees there that you saw. So that should be a bit fun, and if everything works, you'll tune in your radio to whatever station, and that should be the audio side of the DVD. So hey, we're trying. Our speaker today. Well, if you Googled, I've done this a couple of times the last week, Stan Hubbard, RAF pilot, you'll get something like about 2,200 hits on the system. Now, I'm not going to go into what they are, because some of you have done it, and some of you know what Mr. Hubbard has done in his career. But there are not many planes. I've got a list here of the planes that was given to me that Wing Commander Hubbard flew, both in Europe, the United States, and in the UK. We have on here, I think as a count last night, was 202 different planes. That 202 different planes is everything from the Common Guard, Spitfire, Hurricane, the Mosquito, but also like the VTOL flying the Bedstead, that he was one of the people who pioneered the vertical takeoff in the 50s. So there is such a list of things that obviously Mr. Hubbard has worked on over the years, either as a test pilot or as being active the Second World War. So with me, it's a great experience. In fact, looking through the list, the only one I couldn't see on there was the Starship Enterprise. That isn't on there, so we need to talk about that one later. For those who, for my childhood anyway, folks that have read the comic books, and in England we had a guy called Biggles. You heard of Biggles? Probably not. But you know very well Tom Swift. And to me, this gentleman is my Biggles, my Tom Swift. Stand up.
I was about to say that I would try and make this as painless as possible. But I see that the thing that you're going to get will fill it all. So I will try and read through the lines and say you an awful lot of this. The main thing I would like to say is that there's much to do these days about the wing commander rank. And I started out as a sergeant pilot at the beginning of the war, flying Norwich, and then to the Spitfires. But I got a little tired of playing nursemaid to the shooters as a sergeant pilot. I was a veritable dog's body, and I went where I was told to go and flew what I was told to fly. Having spent quite a bit of time playing nursemaid to the shooters, I got interested in the new hot rod, the Mosquito, and the Western Whirlwind. The Western Whirlwind really was my idea of a hot rod. It was a twin-engine monoplane, much smaller than the Mosquito. And it had two Rolls-Royce Peregrine engines, big 12s, underslung under the wing, and it had a high tailplane. So it had quite a swing on takeoff. Thus it earned its reputation as being a killer. Whether this was a reputation that the Air Ministry used for its departure from the services, I do not know, but I think it had quite a bit to do with it. The main excuse was that they wanted, in the new bomber that was on the drawing board, a new engine. So the chaps at Rolls-Royce took up the Peregrine engine, turned it upside down, and put it underneath another Peregrine engine, and they called it the Vulture. That gave rise to the Vulture engine Manchester, as it was called. It developed a reputation of being the Royal Air Force's finest single-engine bomber, because they never ever came back with both engines running. However, the Vulture engine was a failure. The lower cylinders oiled up, and the upper cylinders were short of oil, and the engine just seized up. It was a good try. It was the first X-type, and it was the last X-type that Rolls-Royce built. However, got the whirlwind fever. I was told that one of the requirements for transfer to a whirlwind squadron was that I should be twin qualified. Now, to a single-engine fighter pilot, this was heresy. And I swallowed my pride and I converted to twins. And I thought that I'd be at a whirlwind squadron very quickly after that. However, having converted to twins, it was just a matter of weeks, and I found myself at a heavy conversion unit, flying Wellington. So the fighter boy became a bomber, almost overnight. And it was not very long after that. I was flying a Wellington with a crew of 5 others, dropping anti-Nazi leaflets on Dijon. What a come. However, we needs must, and I did my best to stay with the program, and it worked out very, very well indeed. And I learned then that there was more to bombing and managing a crew than you could take a stick. And I stayed with the program, as I say, and I became a passable bomber pilot. 56 operational sorted at night. Later, the war came to an end. Then in 1946, I suppose, we were having been converted to an engine transport, C-47s, in other words, we were ready to go to join the onslaught on Nippon, the imperial Japanese island. And unfortunately, I say unfortunately for the people of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, they were laid waste. And thank goodness for the end of the war came in a hurry. So we were stuck without a job in Cairo on the way to the Far East. So what more could they do but have us supplying the routes, the transport routes, as they were known throughout Africa and the Middle East. That lasted for quite a while, and then I thought that I would try my hand at engineering. Having been a mechanical engineer and graduate at the beginning of the war, I thought that it would be a good idea if I joined the truck driving group. So I finagled a posting to the test pilot school at Farmers. In 1948, that's all I did. Push slide rules in the morning, step 6 as we call them, and flying all sorts of interesting airplanes in the afternoon. That lasted all 1948, and 1947, 49, I became a test pilot at the Royal Aircraft Establishment on the other side of the airfield at Farm. That they tolerated my handling of the airplanes until 1951, and then I got back into fighters. And in 1952, I went to a fighter squadron and had a few months, several months as a flight commander, and then I took over the command of the squadron. So back to fighters, and it was most enjoyable. Jet fighters, the VPR-8 was a great airplane to fly in those days. However, that went on for quite a while, and in 19, I guess, I'm trying to catch up with my airplane age plans. 1954, I was sent, having learned the new rules of fighter operations, I was sent to the Air Fighting Development Squadron at Central Fighter Establishment. And that was great, because the squadron was expecting the new swept-wing fighter aircraft, and we had the Swift from Supermarines, and forgot the name of it. But anyway, the swept-wing aircraft from the factory at Hawkins, and that was most enjoyable. After the 2 years and a half at Central Fighter Establishment, I was then sent back to Farnborough at the Empire Test School, and there I became a test flying tutor. That was interesting too. Teaching people, or guiding people, young chaps from all over the world. Hence the name of the school, the Empire Test Pilot School. And we had, in fact, on one occasion, a student from Egypt. He was quite a chap, and had died in the war Islamic, but he was a good chap, a very, very good chap. He killed himself at Farnborough during the course. After that course, I was sent to RAE Bedford, which was the experimental establishment in charge of the advanced aircraft. There was the Flying Bedstead. The thing was, that's a picture of the Flying Bedstead. It was just a couple of Rolls-Royce Neame engines, back to back, with outriggers, and it was literally flying with the finger and thumb. It was totally unstable, of course, but it was the first jet VPO test aircraft. On the other hand, we had aircraft capable of back numbers of 2, and one of which we turned into the test vehicle, where we tested the stability and control derivatives for the Concorde. And after a year and a half, we made that into a scale model of the Concorde, and that was the delight to fly too. But it was capable of about 2.1, 2.15 Mach numbers. We also have that time, the prototype of the Lightning, the English Electric Lightning, which was also capable of a Mach number of 2 plus. Certainly 2 plus in a dive. But they were short-legged. The FB2, the test model for the Concorde was a little Delta aircraft and it had 5 fuel tanks in the wing. And it only held about 2,400 pounds of fuel in all 5 tanks. So it didn't have much time in the air. In fact, one of the flights, test flights that we carried out was damping in pitch at 5 G and starting at Mach number of 2, trim the aircraft into a tight turn, 5 G, and occasionally hit the stick to induce an oscillation. And the instrumentation would see how long it took to dampen it out. And that was one of the famous tricks of the slender delta wing. The P1, as the prototype of the Lightning was called, had a little more fuel in it, but it had 2 engines superposed, one on the top of the other. And that ate up the fuel at almost a similar rate. But we did a lot of test work at Mach numbers of 2. At that time, also, we were sent off to other flight test establishments around the world, like Edwards and the Centre d'Essai on board in France, and we flew their Mach 2 capable aircraft too, the Mirage series in France, and the P104 and Edwards, and the Grumman aircraft, the Super Tiger Cat, which was the F-11F-1F, which was also Mach number of 2 capable. And so it was all very, very interesting, and the time went by like a flight. Really did. After that tour at RAE Bedford, I was sent back to the Empire Test Pilot School, where I was the chief test pilot for about 2.5 years. And that was my last flight with the RAF uniform. I did a lot of flying after that on Harriers and things of that nature. The Kestrel, which was a prototype of the Harrier, and it was almost enjoyable. Anyway, I've rambled on a little bit, and you'll be getting this courtesy of David here. I forgot. Yes, and I was going to turn this over to questions.
Okay, that's all right.
You're the first question.
I've got 2, by the way. That's the first one.
Okay. Yes, I was at Langley, and how did I mess that was a most enjoyable time. Anyway, I was at Langley Air Force Base from 1960 to 1960, halfway through 1962. In fact, I finished up the job there, and the job was a very interesting one. I was, the first 4 months, I was on the staff of the Director of Operations, who was a 3-star general, and as he put it, all we want you to do is keep the momentum on my table and check the copy, see the result. And then in the new year, which was 1961, he said, Stan, we're going to put you to work. You're going to be in charge of fighter operations. So, thank goodness I did to Edwards before that. And I was still qualified in all of the aircraft that Tactical Air Command had. And so I got a lot of flying too during my grand job. Anyway, my last task, I shouldn't go into that right this juncture. One of the interesting things was, during the Berlin contingency operations, the federal government decided that we had to support the Allies in Europe and send all the fighter aircraft over to Europe. So we shipped, we flew 800 fighter aircraft, all the National Guard units, out to Europe and showed the strength of the USA, tactical USA. And I was command project officer of that. And the commander said to me, hey, Stan, you're my lean and mean lining. And if you, right now, you are, and if you lose one aircraft in this room, I'll fire. So, thank goodness we didn't lose one aircraft. Next thing, one of the last jobs I did involving aircraft there was the annual fighter weapons meet competition, where we brought all the tactical fighter wings together, even the ones from overseas, and had them operate at Nellis Air Force Base and compete with all the weapons delivery that were good. And I thank goodness that the point defense fighter, the F-104, won that particular competition. The last job that I did there was on the staff of the planning for the Cuba contingency. That was very interesting. And the commander said to me, Stan, we better get you on an airplane back to Limey, man, in case we lose this one, because they'll be after your blood. Anyway, that was my, that's the answer to that question.
I'll ask my second question. With the UFO sighting, would you like to make a comment on that?
On that?
The UFO sighting. We believe you did a sighting of an unidentified flying object.
trying to forget that. Yes. When I was at Farnborough, I'd been doing a job out on the west coast of Wales, and I flew a Phoebus torch back to Farnborough against the headwind, and that was about a 5-hour trip. However, we got back, and my commander said, "Okay, Stan, we've got your report. Now, why don't you go and please yourself?" So I thought, "Oh, that's great. I'll go to the mess." I was walking across the airfield, a straight line for the officers' beds, and it was a quiet morning. It was about 11 o'clock one morning, and in June, and I suddenly became aware that there was a sound that was different, very, very different. And it was a quiet morning, and no engines were running up on the airfield, no one was flying. I turned around and looked, and in the west, towards Basingstoke, I saw this peculiar thing coming towards me, rocking from side to side. And as it got closer and closer, I saw that it was an oval, a round object. Looking at the end on, it looked like one of the discus we used to throw when I was at school. It passed over and I've been asked many times how big it was. And I'd say if I knew that it was flying at 1,000 feet, it would be about 70 feet across. And the astonishing thing about it, it was a matte grey colour. With an annular ring around the periphery that was sparkling, and it was emanating a crackling noise above the hum of the whatever it was driving. But as it passed overhead, I turned around to follow it, and the young woman who was the dispatcher from the test pilot's office came out of her shack screaming, and she knew me very well. She said, Stan, look at that horrible thing in the air. And I tried to ignore her. Typical lady. But I tried to ignore her and watch this thing go out of sight. And it was just doing the same movement. However, I turned around and went back and reported it to my CO. And they said, let us get on to the elements. He called the elementary immediately while I was in the office, spoke to the director of scientific operations, and was told that they were sending a team out to interrogate us. But anyway, they came and that afternoon, and we heard the drinking, and I told them exactly what I told them.
Now, Ed's got a roaming mic. We've probably got time for a couple of
We have time for questions.
It's raining a little bit.
bit outside, but we're still very, very hopeful.
We're still good to go.
Okay, so have we got like probably 5-10 minutes max?
Something like that.
Any questions?
Question?
Got one at the front. It's going to be at the
All
front.
the way up the front.
We'll probably hear you, but everybody else wants to know.
Sir, how old were you when you went into the RAF?
19, I think. I was born in 1921.
And
I was
also,
born in 1921, and I went into the RAF in 19...
a second question for me. What was your educational background? You mentioned you were a sergeant pilot, and then went on to do big and better things.
I was educated in York at the King's Manor School, and from then on I went on to the School of Technology in York, and I finished up at Cambridge, and Manningham Hall College, Cambridge. I graduated in mechanical engineering just as war broke out. And I went back.
Yep, there it is.
Forget that way.
ET program.
I promised that I would make this as painless as possible. And David is trying to pour the agony on.
Thank you very much for your talk. Question is about the Spitfire. After its stellar performance in the Battle of Britain, it didn't take much part in the battles over Germany because of its short range. What measures were tried to put more fuel into the Spitfire so it might have the ability to get over Germany?
In 1941, we, for the first time, to my knowledge anyway, we installed droppable fuel tanks on the wing. And we had 90-gallon fuel tanks initially, and they were subsequently increased to 110 gallons. It increased the range substantially, but decreased the performance measurably too. It was a typical situation, and I don't think that the two drop tanks have about as much drag as two 500-pound bombs, and I thought that the bombs were more useful because the enemy wasn't very far away.
Mr. Hubbard, could you describe some of your experiences flying fighters in the war, the Hurricanes and the Spitfire, sir? Thank you.
Yes, I had a swivel net. I think my survival largely was the result of developing a swivel net, because as a number two to shooters, I spent more of my time looking what was shooting at us from behind. I tell you, I wake up sometimes at night and I can see traces going under my wing, and I know full well that it would be hitting the aircraft very, very quickly thereafter. I think that as a single-engine fighter pilot, and There were a lot of shameful things that bothered me about it. Initially, not the shooting down of aircraft, seeing my friends get the chop as well, but not being able to come to grips with the difference in the numbers. The enemy seemed to be always able to put more aircraft over us than we had able to. We were able to mount up against them, and of course the big wing situation was one of the palliatives that was tried to get more aircraft up was that number of people that believed that if you got a wing up, a wing of say 24 aircraft up, it would have more damage available to put on the enemy. That was rubbish. We didn't have the number of aircraft to do that. And some say that the Battle of Britain was a draw. I would tend to agree with that, even though Winston Churchill was one of those who said it was a win. We breathed a sigh of relief, a deep sigh of relief, because it was a question of attrition. And thank goodness we were able to cause the weight of the attrition to affect the Luftwaffe more than it does. I say that even though the losses were great, and a lot of my contemporaries felt that very, very much indeed. And some of them succumbed to it. The end of the war brought, the end of the battle, I beg your pardon, the end of the Battle of Britain, so-called Battle of Britain, spelled enough for a number of my contemporaries. However, it's one of those things.
Time for just one more quick question.
Mr. Hubbard, thank you very much for all you've done for aviation and to defend us. I was curious about the VTOL work that you were involved in, especially the picture, if you could show again. I was curious, you were at Langley, did you have any part